Hey guys, welcome to another wonderful episode of How to Talk to Girls at the Mall. Today we are talking to Rita, who is a labor organizer in the UK, and we're going to talk about the absolute boy, Jeremy Corbyn. But first, Rita, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Rida. I'm active in Young Labour and the student movement, but mainly I'm on the Young Labour National Committee and I am on the Momentum National Coordinating Group. Momentum is basically the sort of organisation that was built out of the Jeremy Corbyn campaign. And so basically I just do a lot of socialist activism in the Labour Party. Up until around 2015, this was a very unrewarding task, like, Sisyphus' labours, but it's kind of suddenly become good and exciting, so that's quite good, I guess. I'm not miserable all the time. We basically do a lot of door knocking, and one of the things that was quite interesting about this general election campaign is there was a much focus on actually talking to people and door knocking. You might think this is incredibly weird, that you're knocking on someone's door but you don't want to talk to them normally, but normally the general organising advice is basically find out if they're voting Labour, if not move on. But I think this time round there was a much greater emphasis. Okay, if someone is talking to you and saying they're undecided, you actually talk to them about the political issues they care about and try to convince them. So that was one of the things that was important. We also did a lot of voter registration drives, because obviously the youth vote was incredibly important in this election, and at the same time the Tories had made it much harder for young people to get on the electoral register. London marginals, at first it was just marginal constituencies that Labour already held, but as the campaign went on we got more optimistic, so we tried places like Croydon and Battersea, which people were thinking, no, you're not going to win, but actually we did win. I just like to point out that every single seat that Oxford University Labour Club campaigned in, we increased the majority or won the seat, so just saying.
That's wonderful. No, that's great. And Brady and I were talking a little bit before we pulled you on, in relation to all this, there seems to be a shift going on, or at least a battle in Labour over what the Blairite consensus seems to be dead. So if you wouldn't mind informing us who don't know all about it, how exactly that happened, what you've been watching happen for Labour over the past year or so.
I think one of the very interesting things about how the shift in the Labour Party has occurred is that it seems to have taken everyone who was actually in the Labour Party before 2015 by surprise, in the fact that no one really seems to have understood that actually there's a big bunch of people out there who'd be happy to join the Labour Party with a left-wing leader. Even the left didn't really think that would happen. I remember 2015, when we were trying to get Jeremy Corbyn just to get onto the leadership ballot paper, people were thinking he's going to come fourth place. We're just getting him on there so he can have someone saying vaguely left-wing things on a national platform. And I think one of the things is that actually we have had outside the Labour Party a massive shift in people's perception of politics and a massive sense of sort of disenfranchisement with the neoliberal consensus, and actually that has brought people into the Labour Party that people in the Labour Party didn't think existed. I think the other thing is that obviously there have been a lot of internal battles in the Labour Party, but I think one of the strange things is that sort of on the broader social level, Jeremy Corbyn is actually quite popular. The left of the Labour Party is quite popular. They're the people who are making the rival memes, whilst the Blairites are feeling miserable and sulking on their email list. But I think that's where actually organisation comes in. All these hundreds of thousands of people who've joined the Labour Party because they think Jeremy Corbyn is great, and all these people who are sort of espousing these really left-wing ideas and are like really genuinely excited about like going to a rally or speaking at a rally or making like these really like creative memes and play cards and things. Like one of the striking things is like all the meme pages who I don't know who actually made them. But like I think it's basically this idea that we have to actually bring people into the Labour Party and we have to get them doing activism on the ground in the Labour Party structures. We need to basically get them to go to their constituency Labour Party meetings and shake them up. And to some extent that's happening. The Blairite consensus, it was partly defeated within the Labour Party because it was so intellectually bankrupt. By 2015, you've actually had a generation of people who are from the right wing of the Labour Party leaders who were so used to like just having control of the party machinery that they just didn't have the ability to make a political argument. They offered no political wisdom.
As somebody who's from the sort of socialist left part of Labour, what do you see are going to be like the crucial issues going forward for Corbyn, for Labour? Like, what are you guys working on? What are going to be the dividing things for you?
So I think one of the things is that I think we should celebrate the revival of popular social democracy, because popular social democracy, whatever its limitations, it just has been people thought it was a dead idea like this time 5 years ago. They thought it was never coming back. But actually, the revival of popular social democracy opens basically a much wider realm of struggle that we can push the boundaries on, and we can push the limitations and expose those limitations and push people further on like things like. So I think dividing lines, I think the areas where the manifesto is weak on is freedom of movement. It explicitly said that there will be an end to freedom of movement with Brexit, which I think was wrong. It would basically be a more restrictive immigration policy than anything even Ed Miliband proposed. And I think we have to actually like make that sort of argument that actually you have to have solidarity with migrant workers, and actually the way to make immigration policy fairer for all is to basically refuse to erect more borders. Sort of as the socialist left, we need to basically be that countervailing pressure and like make it more difficult to conceive this than it is. And I think the other thing that I think is quite that the manifesto is quite weak on is actually the right to strike. Now, the rhetoric around trade unions in the manifesto is actually quite good. It talks about trade unions being the best way that like workers can collectively organise within better conditions, but it only specifically commits to the repeal of the 2015 Trade Union Act. And actually, I think there is a whole history of repressive legislation around trade unions that need to be repealed. Like, for example, the laws around like that ban solidarity strikes that emerged around the 80s. We need to be very, very clear that actually the only way that actually the sort of Corbyn project can be sustained is by an actively organised and emboldened labour movement that has the capacity to take action to enact its programme, and that basically involves repealing not just the 2015 Trade Union Act, but all the stuff that went before that. But there are many young people who want to do cool and radical stuff right now, and we should actually like be pulling them into political activity and organising them.
Right. Rita, before you go on, I just have a quick question about that. So we keep comparing the political situation in America to what's happening in Britain, and there is a lot of similarity, but materially, what's the state of the labor movements in Britain? This is just because I don't know much about, have unions been destroyed to the extent that they have in the United States? What's the state of the labor movement in Britain?
Okay, so I definitely don't think they have been destroyed to the extent they have in the USA. I think one of those issues with trade unions in the UK is that they're frequently the public sector is still heavily unionised, like teachers, like nurses, civil service workers, the tube workers and train workers particularly, again, are very heavily unionised. And so there's some services and some sectors that are still very heavily unionized, but actually private sector unionization is a much more uphill struggle. I think trade unions collectively still have several million members in the UK, but actually there has been a decline in recruitment rate, and there's also been, in some trade unions, there has been a decline in numbers. And I think the labour movement in the UK is in a stronger state than it is in the US, but I don't know that much about the US. But it definitely needs a lot of work, and there are definitely a lot of sectors that still need to be more heavily unionized than they currently are.
As a member of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, in the US, is something we're really focused on too, is that there seem to be a lot of young people whose lives have been totally jeopardized, whose futures have been foreclosed on by their preceding generation, and are incredibly angry and somehow and probably hopeful that they can do something about it as well. What do you see on the horizon for Labour and the UK? As far as what to do with this government, etc.
I mean, this is quite a difficult question, purely because in the past 2 years, UK politics has had a habit of kind of overthrowing your previous expectations of how you think politics should go. But I think there's obviously a very real chance that there is going to be a general election in the very near future. I think there are two aspects to what has been the reaction within the Labour Party following the general election. One of them is there are people who sort of have identified with the left, who had a crisis of faith because they thought Corbyn wasn't doing very well, and they're sort of returning to the fold. But there's also, I think, an aspect where genuine political differences are now sort of being masked over with the language of concern for electability and going he proved us wrong, but now we think we should be able to do this, this and this. Say, well, yeah, Jeremy Corbyn, he's proved us wrong, but also can we have all these shadow cabinet positions now? And I think it's quite clear that at this point the humble pie suppliers, they ran out of stock. Basically, be careful that we understand that we won because we offered, but we just we won, we got the result we did. We got 30 seats because we offered a radical and bold manifesto, probably the most left-wing manifesto that someone my age has seen in their lifetime. And admittedly, and this is following years of really weak politics where everything was going to the centre ground. And the stuff that got out, the stuff that inspired people to vote for us was never the sort of sensible stuff. It was never the concessions. It was no one ever told me, oh, I'm voting Labour because I'm convinced Jeremy Corbyn is really credible on national security. Now he's promised this. It was always stuff oh, I'm voting Jeremy Corbyn because the £10 minimum wage, that's a great idea. I'm voting Jeremy Corbyn because free education. It was, or I'm voting Jeremy Corbyn because he's going to build tons of social housing. So we should be very, very clear that actually this election result, it is basically a mandate for us to go further, to be more radical and be bolder, and not try to not reconcile our politics and compromise, because no one voted for us on our compromises. They voted on us for the stuff that we actually made coherent political demands that...
Rita, can you say that one more time for us, just real quick? Can you say that one more time for us? What does the left need to do?
Be bolder and more radical.
Got it, thank you, yeah.
I've been living vicariously through UK politics, and I wish and I hope that we in the US can learn from the UK and push harder. Certainly that's what we're trying for in the DSA and in many other orgs that members of this podcast and show are of, and friends of and comrades of ours. And so I just want to bring it to a last question. We've loved having you on. You're remarkable. This has been great. Do you have anything you want to plug? Any personal projects that are going on?
I'd like to plug the magazine I am an editor of. I don't have a copy of its most recent issue here. I have a copy of issue 5, which is actually when things are a bit more miserable. So actually, like, but I'll say the back, because the back has a good demand. It has like Take Over the Bank. Yeah, so it's a socialist magazine. It's online as well as in print, because I appreciate that it might. I appreciate that posting it out to US comrades might not be that effective, but yeah, it is online. It's basically a good place for debate and discussion within the left of the Labour Party and in Momentum. The other thing I would like to plug is Red Labour. It is a social media page. I am a part of it. I mean, it doesn't really need plugging because it has something like a 900,000 likes or something now, because we just got really popular. But yeah, I think it's one of the most effective social media platforms that the left of the Labour Party has developed, and also it's very grassroots oriented, and it's just run by really great people. So yeah,
really appreciate your time. You're amazing. Thanks for coming on and giving us a little bit of hope from the dark America.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was actually honestly heartening, so thank you so much.
It's no problem. I'm glad to give you hope. Hope's important.